and we left that hospital with 3 boxes instead of 3 babies. And I've never felt such devastation and utter despair in my life. And I just thought, how am I gonna do this? Everything I knew has changed. Everything that I had pictured is gone. It's like sand through my fingers. I was desperately trying to grasp onto something and there was nothing there to grasp, and I have never felt so empty. And I went home and, as we all do when we lose babies, went through postpartum without a baby there, and just went through the motions and tried to pick the pieces of myself back up. And I don't think I realised how sick I was until it got really bad and it was really dark for a while, and I didn't want to be here anymore.
Welcome to The Rainbow Connection. This podcast was designed for mothers who are finding their way through life after loss. Whether you're grieving, trying to conceive again, newly pregnant, or holding hope in your heart for what's to come, this space is for you. Each week you'll hear real and tender stories of love, heartbreak, healing, and the babies who continue to shape us. I'm your host, Kristin Mundy, a mother, doula, and a woman who's walked this path too. May these conversations remind you that you are not alone, that your baby is never forgotten, and that hope and grief can live here together. Before we begin today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk to you. Just you. If you are a lost mom in any season of this journey, I want you to know that I created something with you in mind. Whether you are newly grieving, trying to conceive again, not sure of what comes next, pregnant after loss, or parenting a living child while still carrying the babies who aren't here, you are welcome. I have a free community called the Doula Life community, and it's a space where lost moms can gather without having to explain themselves. A place where you don't have to shrink your grief, you don't have to tone down your hope, and you definitely don't have to pretend like you're okay. Inside, you'll find other women who understand this journey. There are message boards, free workshops, shared stories, and gentle resources. But more than anything, there is connection. It's completely free and it's growing, and it was built to feel like a soft place to land. If your heart has been craving that kind of space, you can join us at thedoulalife.ca/community. I'd love to see you inside. Today's conversation on the Rainbow Connection is one that feels really close to my heart. I get to sit down with Elle Margetson, and honestly, she's one of those people where from the moment that we first connected, it just felt like I had known her forever. Like she was my kindred spirit, just living across the pond. We have, such similar threads in our stories. The timing, the way we work now, the way it's changed our careers, the way we've both been shaped by the loss of our babies. And there's something really special about sitting across from another lost mom who just gets it without having to explain or needing to filter anything. I'm sure all of you know this. Elle is a mom to 3 beautiful babies, her triplets, and she's also a rainbow mama. And in this episode, she shares the story behind those words. We're expecting 3. She takes us through the shock of finding out that she was carrying triplets, something that many of us, don't know many people who have carried triplets. The complications that followed, and the days she spent loving on those babies in the NICU before having to say goodbye to each of them. Like I said before, not many women carry triplets in their lives. I have only met probably 2 other mothers before Elle who have carried triplets. It is a feat. Saying goodbye to them is another feat, the biggest feat, one that I wish so badly that she never had to go through. We talk about premature birth, neonatal loss, and the kind of motherhood that exists even when your babies don't get to come home with you. We also talk about what came after her pregnancy after loss, being able to bring home her son, and the reality of learning to live in that space where grief and joy are existing side by side. This is an emotional conversation. I mean, most episodes on the podcast are emotional, but this is one that I know so many of you are just going to feel so deep in your heart and in your bones. I'm so grateful that Elle trusted me and all of us with her story. Okay, enough from me. Let's hear from Elle. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Rainbow Connection. Today, I'm joined with Elle, coming all the way from the UK. Hi, Elle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
I'm really looking forward to getting to know Elle more and hearing more about her story and her journey through motherhood, because she definitely has a story to share. She's going to be sharing about her triplets today and her experience of welcoming her rainbow baby and what that pregnancy was like. But before we dive into Elle's story, why don't you, share a little bit with our listeners about yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, hello for anybody listening. My name is Elle. I am a lost mom of 3 triplets and a rainbow mom to 1 2-year-old. I'm also a therapist for lost moms. I've been doing that for over 3 years now, and I've been very fortunate in a way that only lost moms would get to support over 120 women across the world through their grief and to find the beauty and the journey through healing. And I hate that I have to do what I do, but I love that I'm able to create a space for people who need it. And it's the support that I wish that I had when I was initially going through my grief. And that's kind of one of the reasons how I found you, is the beautiful space that we have to connect online and beautiful podcasts like this. And I'm very, very grateful, in a very sad way, to be here, but I'm very grateful to be able to share my story today.
I totally get it. I feel like you and we have very similar timelines, and we both hold lots of space, and it kind of feels like I'm, looking in a mirror a bit, only in the UK, kind of living similar lives, but very different, but have a lot in common. So I'm just so thankful that you're here and you get to share your wisdom and your journey with us.
Thank you.
But wherever you'd like to start, I would love to hear more about those beautiful triplets of yours.
Yeah, wow. Okay, well, I'll take you right back to the beginning, and grab your coffees if you're listening, because this is going to be a long one. Okay, so my fiance Lewis and I, we were trying to have a baby for a couple of years, and I have PCOS, and we weren't getting pregnant. We'd been trying, and we knew that something was wrong. I knew that it was me. So we went and obviously got some help with that, and they said first stop, try medication. So they put me on letrozole, and the first cycle that we took, we were so lucky that we got pregnant first time round. When they gave me the medication, they were like, there's a 0.5% chance that you'll have multiples, like you're good. So we were like, okay, we're good.
Now, letrozole is the medication that helps you ovulate, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I think that's like an off-script way to use it. I think it is ironically supposed to be used for women who have breast cancer, but the off-label for it is it helps you ovulate. I don't know too much about it, but that's as much as I know. But yeah, they put me on that. We got pregnant first cycle. Didn't think too much of it. Lewis is a twin, but we were like, oh, it follows the maternal side. Like, we'll be good. I had never experienced pregnancy before, and I started to show at around 7 or 8 weeks. And I was like, I don't think this is normal. So I did what every girl does. I called my mum and I was like, hey, what's going on? And she was like, I think book in for a private scan, because I think something's going on. So we did. We went for a private scan at about, I want to say about 8, 9 weeks. And as soon as we got in there, as soon as they put the Doppler on, I saw 2, and Lewis was overjoyed. He was like, oh, I'm going to be the brother that has the twins, because his brother has a little boy too.
Another thing, Elle, is my husband's also a twin. So another commonality.
That's so strange. Honestly, it's crazy. But yeah, we saw 2 and we were like, this is amazing. We're going to have twins. And everything went real quiet. And that's when I started to panic. So I was thinking, okay, is there something going on here? And she was like, nothing's wrong. I'm just doing a double check. I'm going to go grab the other sonographer. So then I was like, oh no. So the other lady came in and she looked and she was like, yep, I see what you're seeing. And I was like, what are you seeing? Because I can't see. And she was like, there's 3. And our jaws hit the floor and we were like, oh my God. Like, 2, you can kind of get your head around 2, but 3, it's like, holy crap, this is like a full-blown family unit in one go. And they were like, we're just checking to make sure there's not like multiple babies in each sack. And I was like, I'm already having a litter. I'm good with 3. So there was 3. We had the best case scenario for triplets because they were trichorionic, triamniotic. So they all had their own sacs. They all had their own placentas. So it's basically 3 separate pregnancies in one uterus at the same time. So we had found out that the letrozole had made me hyperovulate, and I released 3 eggs at one time.
So no identical twins. Everyone is their own unique egg. Yeah.
Everyone's doing their own thing. And obviously it took us a few weeks to get our heads around the fact that we were going to have 3 babies. We're like, right, well, we need to get the ball going. We need to get planning and get our ducks in a row because this is going to be a huge life change.
Oh, yeah.
And I was happy thinking, I don't enjoy being pregnant. So I was like, one and done. I'm good. They can whip my uterus out when they're in there. Happy days. So we had just planned our life already, and we were like, this is going to be amazing. We fully adapted to life of being parents of 3, and everything was going well. I had multiple scans all the way through. I was classed as a high-risk pregnancy anyway. And then I got to about 15 weeks and I started to feel a little off, and I knew that something wasn't quite right. So I went to my consultant and I was like, hey, I think I might be leaking fluid here because something's going on that isn't normal. And I also feel like I'm starting to show signs of maybe having an infection. And they gaslit me so hard. I was told, no, like, you're just being overzealous. You're a first-time mom. You're carrying multiples. This is normal. I knew it wasn't normal. Like, TMI, but I was getting through underwear like nobody's business because something was going on and nobody took me seriously. And it got to, I was 20 weeks, I want to say, ish. No, maybe 21 weeks. And I had, because the way I communicate with my midwives, I text them because it was just shoddy signal in the hospital they're at. And I said, hey, look, something's going on. I don't feel right. I don't feel well. I hadn't felt well for a couple of days. And I was like, I don't think there's anything too major, but something's going on. I didn't hear back from them at all. And it got to about a week later. And I was like, oh, well, if it was anything major, they'd let me know. And a week later, I still hadn't heard anything. The Sunday, I went to bed because I felt awful. And the next day, my mum came around and she was like, you look terrible. You need to go to hospital. So I was like, okay, I'd started to get some pain like under my ribs. And I was like, okay, like something's obviously going on. I got into that hospital and I knew from the second I walked through the door, the panic on their faces, I knew something was going on and it wasn't good. So it was through COVID as well. It was 2021. So I couldn't have anybody with me. My partner Lewis is at work. My mom, they made her go wait in the car. And I was like, I'll be good. Like, I'll be in and out in a couple of hours. Anyway, they took me around and put me in a bed. I had about 7 doctors in straight away, and they were like putting me on an ECG, getting an IV line in, and all these kind of things. And I was like, hey, look, can somebody just tell me what's going on? Because I'm obviously aware something's happening.
What do you think like triggered their initial worry? Like, did they triage you and they're like, oh, or like what do you think triggered the worry? Just the fact that you were a triplet pregnancy, or?
I think the fact that I was a triplet pregnancy, but they triaged me and my heart rate was through the roof. My blood pressure was through the roof.
Okay.
Things were off and they knew they were off. And I'd said that I'd felt ill. So they were like, okay, there's obviously something going on. So they hooked me up for everything. They were like, we need to give you fluids. We need to give you IV antibiotics, like your infection marker. They did a blood test and ran off and came straight back, which is unusual over here. It normally takes a while to get your test results back. And they were like, your infection markers are high. And then I had the consultant come in and she was like, I don't want you to panic, but we think that you have sepsis. So we need to get this rectified pretty quickly before it gets to the babies. But she made it sound like it was going to be easy. Like, it's fine. We'll get you in. We'll give you some antibiotics. You'll be good. You can go about your day. So I was like, okay, cool. They had to keep me in overnight. And I was like, I'll just go home tomorrow. Things will be okay.
See, isn't it amazing how our brains work? Like, after being gaslit by your medical providers, that you start to almost like convince yourself that like, oh, it's it's fine. We're gonna be fine. Like
Yeah.
it's remarkable to me how we do that.
I think it's because we trust that they know what they're doing, that they're good at
Exactly.
their
Yeah.
jobs.
You're like,
And
wow, they know more than me. They know more than
yeah.
me. So I should probably trust them, right?
And as a first time mum, I think you you don't know any better. You don't know the things that
Mm-hmm.
can happen. You're still so naive to the world's
Mm-hmm.
the ways of loss that you just go, well, I'm sure it's okay. They're telling me it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I went about it and I was just like, can I go home in the morning? And they were like, yeah, you should be good. And at that point, I was 23 and 1.
Hmm.
Um, no, sorry, I was 23 weeks exactly. And the next day,
And this
I
had been going
waited.
on since 16-ish weeks, you said, I
Yeah,
think?
15, 16 weeks, something had been going
Wow.
on. I knew something was wrong.
Mm.
And I was about, I can't remember the semantics, 23 or 23 and 1. And
Mm-hmm.
I had sent everybody home because I was like, oh, sure, I'll be fine. The hospital was an hour away from where we live. So Lewis had just got home. I had dinner and I stood up and my waters broke.
Hmm.
And that was a turning point for me that I was like, this isn't what they're telling me this is. This is going to go south very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I full blown panicked, pressed my call button, had a midwife rush in. It was the only time I've ever met a male midwife, and he was amazing. He was so
Hmm.
lovely, and he was so reassuring. He was like, I've seen this happen a lot of times. It doesn't always mean it's the end. You know, we have things that we can do. Um, so they came in, they take me up to the delivery ward. They start saying lots of things to me that I don't understand. They're like, you know, you need to call your family. So I'm calling them and saying, you need to come back. I'm fully panicking at this point.
Of course.
Um, They give me steroid shots. They get me up on a magnesium drip, which is horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were just kind of like, okay, well, your waters have broke. We can't give you any medication to stop labour because you have sepsis and you have an infection. At that point, I found out I got chorioamnionitis as well.
Hmm.
Um, which I later found out if it's caught early enough, it can be treated with antibiotics. But if it's left to the point where it gets inside the chorion, it's almost always fatal.
Hmm.
And that had unfortunately happened, and I didn't know at that point.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, my waters had gone. They were like, you need to stay on bed rest. We have to wait it out and just see what happens. We'll give you as many like treatments as we can. So that was that. And then the next morning, they came around and they scanned me and they said that the baby at the bottom, so they were sitting in a triangle. So I had Noah across the bottom, then I had Eden Hudson on either side. And they told me that it was Noah's waters that had broken
Hmm.
and that they couldn't see him. And they presumed he was in the birth canal, but they couldn't see any movements. They told me that he was going to be stillborn.
Hmm.
So at that point, I'm already heartbroken and
Of
I'm
course.
holding back my grief because I'm like, okay, they're saying to me, you know, you need to stay as calm as possible for the other babies. And I'm like, well, you try being in this bed and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to, for lack of a better word, keep my shit together and just prepare for him to come and that they get everything ready. And I'm walking around and I said to my mom and Luce, like, he's not gone. I can feel him moving. And they're like, no, we're pretty certain, like, it'll just be your body contracting and pushing him out. I'm like, no, like, I feel like he's going to pop a leg or an arm out. Like, I can feel him wriggling.
Hmm.
And still they're adamant. They were like, no, it'll just be your body contracting. This is normal. And I think you just know when something's not right. And I was like, I'm telling you, he's going to be born. He's going to be born alive. And lo and behold, that afternoon, I gave birth to him and he came out and the midwife looked at me just with sheer panic and she was like, I'm so sorry, you were right. He's showing signs of life. And I was like, well, do something. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, we can't. You agreed to palliative care and it's COVID. We don't have the staff. We don't have the crash cot. We don't have the crash team. By the time we get them in here, it's going to be too late. There's virtually nothing we can do. So I was beside myself. Obviously, because they were like, had basically given me no choice but to watch my son die.
Hmm.
And he was 23 and 2, so he was tiny, but the hospital had a NICU that could take babies from 22 weeks, so they could have helped him. But they said because we'd made the decision to do palliative care, that that's what we had to stick to. But we'd made that decision thinking that he was going to be still.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And you would have
so
made a
obviously,
different decision if they had listened to you,
yeah.
right? If they had listened
Mhm.
to you, then maybe they would have been prepared. for that
Exactly.
possibility. Oh my
If they'd have
gosh.
listened to me at the beginning, we wouldn't have even been where we were.
Mhm.
So obviously I was devastated, beyond
Mhm.
devastated.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. A consultant came in, spoke to me. He said the likelihood is that the other babies will come within 48 hours. So I was just determined for them not to. He was like, we've never had this happen before. We don't know what we're doing in this situation. So he sutured Noah's umbilical cords, stitched the end of the umbilical cord up, and pushed it back inside my cervix, because they were like, we don't want to take the placenta out because it could be attached to the other two, and if it does, it'll pull all three of them out. But they were putting a placenta back internally that they knew was infected. And at this point, we don't know if Eden and Hudson were infected or not. Now, I've spoken to other professionals since this point, and they were like, they should have just given you a section and got them all out at that point. However, that wasn't what happened. We were told to, again, monitor it and see what happened in case they came naturally. So we spent the time that we could with Noah. We did what no parent prepares for. You know, we took pictures with him, we washed him, we dressed him, we sang to him, we read to him, and we had 3 or 4 hours with him before he passed.
Oh.
And one thing that really bothers me now, that I learned after we pursued a negligence case, was that we were told at the time, that I asked multiple times if he was in pain, if he could feel any of it, and they were like, no, he's too tiny, like, he'll be okay. And after speaking to several NICU consultants afterwards, they were like, no, babies can feel pain even when they're that tiny. So I don't know if my son was in pain for any of those hours that we had him, and he should have been given morphine and he wasn't. And that's one
Sorry.
thing that really, it cut me a lot when I found that out, because as a mum, even though you know they're going to pass, you want to do what you can to help them. And if somebody said to me, hey, this is an option, I would have said, do whatever you can to make him comfortable.
It sounds like they didn't, for a lot of different situations or things that happened, that they didn't give you a lot of options.
No,
I'm just so
no, they
sorry.
weren't.
But
And
he was with his mom and dad. I mean,
yeah,
it's obviously, you have such a huge right to be angry. I would be angry too. And yeah, there's no silver lining. Yeah.
no. There's
Mhm.
not any silver lining to it, and it's okay that there's not, and there doesn't have to be. And you're right, I will always be angry about that. I can't not be.
Mhm.
You know, and I pulled myself apart over the years, and it's taken me a lot of therapy to get to a point to not blame myself anymore. Of, you know, if I'd have gone sooner, if I'd have chosen a different hospital. Hindsight is a beautiful but dangerous thing. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, we lost Noah, and again, this is something else that annoys me, is that we were never told. I didn't know cold cots existed. Nobody ever mentioned it to me. So we were never given the option of a cold cot with him. So he was taken straight pretty much from us to the Chapel of Rest. And then it was kind of, right, you have to put all of your focus into these two babies. So I didn't grieve. I literally had to put a pin in it, for lack of a better phrase, and just try and put all of my energy into making sure that Eden and Hudson were okay.
Mhm.
And I just remember being so totally switched off and just completely numb at that point, because I was like, I don't know how I can go through this again. If I have to go through this again, how am I going to do it?
Mhm.
Um, so we pushed on, and my labour stopped, and I was so grateful that it did. Um, so that was I had Noah on a Wednesday, and my labour stopped on the Wednesday night, and then I literally stayed bedbound for a couple of days. I didn't move. And I remember Lewis had gone home, and my mum was staying with me, and it was like 10, 11 p.m. on the Friday night, and I started feeling twinges again. And I was
Oh.
like, oh no, I know where this is going.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I did go into labour again, and I laboured from 10, 11 p.m. on the Friday evening till 6 a.m. on the Sunday morning. Um, and it got to a point, my consultant came and she was like, you're fully dilated, so you have a choice here. You can either birth them naturally and it's safer for you, but it's more likely they won't make it. Or, bear in mind, I was still super sick at this point. They were like, we can give you a section, but it's safer for them, but a much higher risk for you, and we can't guarantee what will happen.
Mm.
But I was so exhausted at this point. mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, every kind of drained.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't have it in me. And I thought, whatever is going to give them the best shot, I will do. So
Of
I
course,
opted
and
for,
I feel like most mothers,
of course,
they would
do
give
that.
their leg to make sure that their baby's okay, right?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. So
it makes total
I
sense.
I agreed to the section. They had to put me under general anaesthetic because something to do with the medications that I'd had through labour. So I didn't get to see them being born, but I remember being wheeled off and kind of making a joke to my mum and my dad and Lewis and being like, okay, bye, like, hopefully I don't die. And I remember the consultant grabbing my hand and I looked at it and I was like, please don't let me die. But if it's got to be somebody, like, make sure they're okay. We'll deal with the consequences. Just do what you need to do. So in we went, and that was the worst, like, 5 minutes of my life. They took me off gas and air, they took me off everything, and I was in full blown labour. I was contracting like every 30 seconds at this point. And they took me into that theatre, and I've never had surgery in my life at this point. So being in a really bright room with loads of people, I was so scared. And I was in so much pain, and they got me on this table. And yeah, they put me under, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up in a side room. No idea if I'm alive or if I'm dreaming. No idea if my kids are alive or if they're safe or what's happened. I had a woman in the cubicle next to me with her newborn baby that I was just like, okay, this just literally sums up my entire experience. I just don't want to be here. And a midwife came in and she was like, oh my gosh, let me get you out of here. And I was in a lot of pain and I just crashed out again. And then I woke up again. I was back in my room and I was like, what happened? Are they okay? And my family were there and they were like, they're okay. They took them to the NICU. And I was just like, I have to see them. And they were like, the staff that were there were like, no, you need to recover. And I was like, no, I need to see my kids. So they took me around in my bed and I was fighting consciousness like you wouldn't believe. And the consultants were in there and they were talking to me and telling me all these things and I couldn't take anything in. I was just completely enamored of the fact that there was just these two little pink babies in two little incubators, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, they're here, they're alive, like, we'll just take it step by step, we'll do what we need to do. So that just started then the 2-week roller coaster of them being in the NICU and recovery, and I was still super sick, and I won't go into details, but I had a big clash with one of the members of staff in there because they wanted to take me off the delivery suite and put me on the postnatal ward with other mums and their babies. And I was like, I can't do that. I wasn't allowed to have anybody with me if I went on that ward. So I would have been climbing the walls and I was hysterical, begging them not to put me there. And they basically told me that I didn't have a choice. So I self-discharged instead. Because I was like, my mental health cannot take that. So I self-discharged. They put us in a suite on the family unit. And I was still so sick that we got there. The worst, but they told me that I had to walk around there. They're like, you need to be on your feet. You need to have to walk. So I had to walk and carry bags. And bear in mind, I'd been cut open and had sepsis and everything else going on. I was still so sick. And I got round there and I completely collapsed. And Lewis had to call one of the NICU nurses and she came and she was so mad and she was like, we're not here for you, we're here for the babies. And he was like, I know, but look. And she was absolutely livid. And they ended up calling the staff back round and putting me back in the same room on the delivery suite that they told me that I couldn't have anymore anyway. And I was in there for another 3 or 4 days, which is another issue in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started the journey of their recovery. I turned into a dairy cow because pumping was the only thing that I could control, that I could do for them. Even though they were too tiny, they couldn't take it. So they were both born at 23 and 6. We almost broke the world record for triplets born the furthest apart. But yeah, they were so tiny. And I remember the first time walking into that room and being lucid and seeing them being like, holy cow, I have 2 kids that are alive. That this is insane. And it's the first time that I actually felt like a parent. But them being in these boxes, I wasn't allowed to touch them in case I introduced any infections because I was still sick and they were so fragile. And it just became a roller coaster of one day Eden would be great and Hudson wouldn't be so great, and the next day they'd switch. And they both, because they were so tiny, they both had grade 3 interventricular brain hemorrhages. So they had pretty intense brain bleeds. Eden's had subsided. Hudson's they really struggled to get a hold of. And it got to day 8 of them being in the NICU, and we went in that morning and we noticed that Hudson's face had completely changed and he was looking really swollen. And the NICU consultant pulled us to a side, and I could see she had tears in her eyes. I was like, this isn't going to go how I want it to go. And she said he had a pretty bad brain bleed that was now starting to seep into the brain, out of the ventricles and into the brain tissue. And the only way that they could stop that was by drilling through his skull to relieve the pressure on a daily basis, which was going to cause permanent brain damage. And he also had sepsis. He also had multiples of infections that she said they'd thrown like the equivalent of the strongest bleach you can get, kind of antibiotics at him, and it wasn't touching it. They also at that point thought that he had meningitis too. So this poor little boy, bless him, had been through so much. He'd had so many blood transfusions at that point. He had been pushed and prodded and poked so much, and they basically said to us, it's up to you what you want to do. We can keep him here as long as you need, but he's not going to leave this hospital, and it's up to you how you decide that goes. And we talked about it, and we both decided that for us and for him, we had to pull the band-aid, because keeping him here, we didn't know if he was in pain, and we were like, yes, we can selfishly keep him here because he's our boy, we want to keep him here, but he doesn't have any quality of life and he might be in pain. I couldn't stand the thought of them drilling into his skull every day, and if we didn't do that and the pressure was building up, I didn't know if that was going to hurt him. So we made the decision there and then. We were like, no, we'll do it today if that's what's got to happen, and there's nothing we can do to change the outcome, and there's no way this is going to get any better. And we exhausted every option. We looked into everything before we kind of made that call, and they were like, look, we've looked down every avenue, and this is kind of the end of the road. So we prepared ourselves to do the impossible again, and something that we never, ever, ever wanted to do for a second time. And we had a family room, so we took him off all of his equipment, and it's the first time I'd ever seen him without tubes coming out of him. And his little face was like marked where they'd had like the tape and everything, and but when it's your kid, you don't care, because you're just like, they're the most beautiful thing in the world to you.
Of course, that's your baby.
And, exactly. And yeah, we took him off to a side room and we kept him on his morphine, which I later learned when we lost Eden, I didn't know at the time, is they give them higher doses of morphine, not just for the pain, but because it helps them to pass quicker. So we took Hudson off, and again we did the same as we did with Noah. We read to him, we sang to him, we all had a little moment with him on our own. We didn't get a chance to do too much with him because he only had 20 minutes here until he passed. But we made sure we spent some time with him after he was gone. But it's a very, very bizarre thing to explain, and something that I wouldn't ever want anybody to experience. And this is the thing that's really quite traumatic for me with neonatal loss, is seeing them go from being a baby, being pink, being warm, and then losing them, and watching their colour change and feeling that temperature change, and just knowing innately that they're not there anymore. That's a really tough process. And having a doctor come in and check your baby's pulse every 5 minutes to see if they're still with you or if they're gone, and you're just, every 5 minutes you're waiting with bated breath for them to give you that, okay, they're gone. So when he was gone, again, we spent some time with him. Still weren't told that we could have a cold cot. So we dressed him, gave him all the love that we could, and gave him to the nurse, and went back to the NICU to pour everything that we had back into the one baby that we had. And we both said that nothing is ever going to make this right. Nothing is ever going to change this. But if we get to take one of them home, at least it doesn't feel like it was for nothing. So we spent the next almost week pouring everything we had into Eden. I mean, we were there every second that we could be. And I was terrified not to be there, because the moments that I wasn't there was the moments that I get the phone calls. So we eventually moved from the family unit to staying with family who live close by, because they were like 2 or 3 minutes from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And the one night we'd gone home, we had a phone call at 2 a.m. and they were like, you need to get here. And when we got there, the consultant was like, we lost her, we got her back, but it took them, I think it was over 20 something minutes to get her back. And I was like, well, how long was she without oxygen? And they were like, we don't know. We don't know if there's any damage there. And at this point, I was like, I don't care. As long as she's alive and we can get her to where she needs to be, whatever, if it's caused, learning difficulties or any disabilities, we'll deal with it. I don't care. She's my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, okay, we'll do what we can. And she seemed to stabilise for a couple of days, and she was doing really well. And every time I walked through the door and she heard my voice, her stats would go all over the place, which was so sweet. And she opened her eyes, and we were getting all these experiences with her because she was growing. And at this point, she would have been like nearly 26 weeks. So she was turning into, I don't want to say a real baby, because she was always a real baby, but she was turning into this real sassy, active little girl that she was inside. And she was, she hated certain doctors touching her, and she was such a character, and everybody loved her. And it got to day 12, and we started to notice that her tummy didn't look right. It looked like it was like a different colour to the rest of her body. It looked quite dark. So they called for an ultrasound. And the hospital we were at was a teaching hospital. And the sonographer came around with a student, and I remember sitting at the side of her incubator, and the sonographer said to the student, can you see something? And she was like, yeah, the bowels look bright and they shouldn't be bright. So I was like, what does that mean? And excuse my French, but I lost my shit that day, because they were like, we can't tell you, we have to send the results off to the lab because we don't know for certain yet. And I was like, no, you're not doing this to me. I've been through so much at this point. This isn't happening. So I grabbed my consultant and I said, you need to sort this out. And lo and behold, they couldn't do anything. So we had to wait for the next day to roll around. And it did. And the minute we walked through the doors, there was about 6 doctors around her. And I was like, okay, I know where this is going. So you put your armour back on again, you guard your heart again, because you know what's going to happen. And our consultant pulled us to one side. And she had become such a core person in our lives at this point, and I will always be grateful to her, because she was incredible. One of the only people in this story that was incredible. And she was so devastated, and she said to me, we think that Eden has necrotizing enterocolitis. So because she wasn't able to feed, she'd been fed through a drip. My understanding is that her internal gut flora and bacteria had basically turned on itself, and it had destroyed everything from her stomach to her rectum. So even if we were able to get her to another hospital for her to have surgery, because I was like, can we have a stoma fitted? Like, can we do something? And she just held my hand and she was like, I'm so sorry, there's nothing for us to save. We can't save anything, and she can't survive without having a gut system. And she's like, I don't get it, because everything else is great. She was doing great. She's thriving. Her brain bleed was clearing up. Her heart was doing well. Everything else was doing great. Other than the typical that happens with NICU babies when they're that tiny, we knew that she would have lost fingers and toes, because they lose blood flow to the extremities, and it's quite common. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I don't care. Like, we'll adapt.
Yeah.
She can have prosthetics if she needs them. But at this point, she was just like, I'm so sorry. It's the same situation with Hudson. We can keep her here, but she's not going home. So again, we were, and it sounds so awful saying this, because everybody would just assume that you'd want to keep them there forever because you want all the time that you can with them, and you do. But as a parent, you also take the phrase, it's cruel to be kind, so personally, because they're your babies, and as much as you want to save them, when you know that you can't save them, you want to do the kindest thing that you can for them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the kindest and most selfless act is to let them go. So again, we made the decision. We were like, right, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen today. At this point, we need closure. And if we're not going to take them home, we need one, for them to be together, one, for them to be at peace, and for us to be at peace, and just to be able to start the healing process. Because at this point, we hadn't grieved at all.
Mm-hmm.
We've been holding everything in for 2 weeks, just trying to get through. So we made the decision. Again, we took her off everything, kept her on her morphine, and she was not ready to go. We had virtually the whole day with her. We had, I want to say, like 7-8 hours with her. And I was so proud of her because she was breathing on her own for that entire time, and she had been on like basically a ventilator the entire time. Like she'd never even got down to CPAP or anything. She was fully on a ventilator. But yeah, she was breathing on her own for that amount of time, and I was
Just
so
a
proud of her.
little fighter, right?
Honestly, I've never seen such determination and strength ever. Not even in a fully grown adult. And this was a micro preemie, and I always knew that she was gonna be the stronger one because she was always so sassy when I was pregnant with them. So we made best of what we could. So we did everything that I wanted to do as a parent, we did. And that's the only time, by the first time that I saw them when they were born, that's the only time that I genuinely, truly felt like a parent, because I had time with my daughter to treat her like my daughter. Like she wasn't covered in tubes, she wasn't in a box that I couldn't touch. So I just absolutely reveled in that. And we bathed her, we changed her nappy or diaper, we picked out a beautiful little outfit for her that somebody had knitted, read to her, sang to her. All of us got time with her on our own, just to kind of say some things that we wanted to say without other ears. And yeah, we made the most of what we could. And this is the part that always gets me, because I'll never forget the feeling of the doctor telling me she was gone and thinking, okay, this is it. This is really it. This is how my life's gonna go now. And I don't know how I didn't crumble that day, and I was still in awe of myself that I didn't. Because I remember handing her to the nurse and saying to her, please, don't leave her alone. And she said to me, I won't, so I'll stay with her till they come for her. And I know that she did. She was a kind nurse, and she was her nurse all the way through. Her name was Jess, and she was amazing. And she was just as devastated for us. And I left that room knowing that there was no reason for me to come back this time. And we went and collected our things, and we left that hospital with 3 boxes instead of 3 babies. And I've never felt such devastation and utter despair in my life. And I just thought, how am I going to do this? How, like, everything I knew has changed. Everything that I had pictured is gone. It's like sand through my fingers. I was desperately trying to grasp onto something, and there was nothing there to grasp. And I've never felt so empty. And I went home, and as we all do when we lose babies, went through postpartum without a baby there. And just went through the motions and tried to pick the pieces of myself back up. And I don't think I realised how sick I was until it got really bad, and it was really dark for a while, and I didn't want to be here anymore. And I didn't leave my house for quite some time, and we eventually, because we stayed with family for a good few weeks before we went home, and then when we went home, I was so broken that I couldn't be in that house anymore, so we sold our house. Because I just didn't want to be there. And my mum said to me, she was like, I think you need to get some help because I can see where this is going. And I felt so guilty because she had been with me through it all and she'd seen so much, and I thought, she's lost her grandbabies, I can't let her lose her baby too. So I got help, and I can honestly say that is the only thing that saved me, was going to see somebody. And this is why I do what I do, why I'm such an advocate for nothing takes priority over your mental health after loss, because if I hadn't have got help, I honestly don't know if I'd be sitting here today. So I went to see, it was a family friend, a friend of my aunt's, and she was a hypnotherapist, and I looked high and low for somebody that had lost a baby and knew what that was like, and there wasn't anybody. And the help that we get on the NHS over here, the wait times were so long, and charities were just full with people that needed help. And I thought, if I don't do something now, I can't wait that long.
Yeah, it's crisis.
Exactly. So I was really, really fortunate that I was able to go private, and the lady that I saw was a friend of my aunt's, and she hadn't lost babies, but she'd lost her husband really young. And I thought, okay, well, she's going to understand to a point what this feels like. So I went to see her, and it was the best thing that I ever did. That truly was my salvation. And I know everybody has their points. I know so many mums lean into religion and other things, but I've never really been a religious person. So for me, this was the thing that I needed to cling to. And yeah, I went to therapy for a while. I started the process of healing, started to get myself back together and put the pieces back together. And she said to me one day, because I already had my psychology degree and a background in mental health at this point, she was like, why don't you do this? There are so many women that are just like you that need help, and there isn't help there. So me being me, I very much like to think that I can save the world. I very much have a complex in that sense, and powered by ADHD, I was like, yeah, I could do this. So I went off and did my postgrad in hypnotherapy, and never looked back.
How far along? Yeah, when did you do that? Like, how long after you lost the triplets did you do that?
I was about 6 months postpartum when I did that.
Things we do when after loss, right?
I know, it's
It's
crazy.
just you can't like stop that runaway train. Like I felt exactly the same. I like became a bereavement doula right after, because you can't unlearn or not see the need when you see it, right?
I think it's that, like I said, it's that undying need to think that if I can stop another person, even just one other person, experiencing what I've experienced or going through what I've been through, then I will. And that's I always knew my entire life that I wanted to help people, but just never knew how. And I would trade it all and live in a cardboard box if it meant that I could have my kids back, but I can't, and nothing I can do can change that. But I am so grateful to them for paving this way forward for me, for showing me what I need to do. And I fully believe they showed me what I need to. I went to see a medium when I was doing my training, and she was like, no, you're meant to do this. Like, this is what they want for you. So I fully grabbed the ball by the horns and ran with it. Ironically, I did go back to work, because in the UK you get 9 months maternity leave. So even though they were before 24 weeks, because they had been born alive and they had passed, I still qualified. So I took my maternity leave. I took 9 months off, and that's what allowed me to do my training. And I went back to work. So I worked at an accountancy firm for years before I was pregnant. And I went back, and I remember feeling like such a square peg in a round hole. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I don't need to be here. I have something that, I think I was just so scared to let go and go into the unknown. But I did, and I've never looked back. And like I said at the start, I hate that I have to be here, but I'm so grateful that I am, and I'm so grateful that I get to share my story every day. But yeah, that was kind of everything that happened up until that point.
While we take a quick break, I want to introduce you to The Haven, my signature support program for mothers who are pregnant again after miscarriage, TFMR, stillbirth, or infant loss. This is not just a course. The Haven is a trauma-informed community program that includes weekly live workshops, expert guest speakers, and ongoing support from me, an experienced doula and fellow lost mom, anytime you need it. You'll also receive one-on-one check-ins, guided journaling prompts, full access to my birth course, Reclaim, and a warm, intimate community of other PAL mothers, a place where you can be real, be held, and be reminded that you are not alone in this. Enrollment inside the Haven is now open, and support is available to walk with you throughout your entire pregnancy. From the moment you see those 2 pink lines, all the way until your baby is tucked safely into your arms. If you've been longing for a place to feel safe, feel seen, and be supported throughout your pregnancy, then the Haven was made for you. You can learn more at thedoulalife.ca/haven. Inside the Haven, your baby is remembered, your voice is honored, and you are fully supported every step of the way.
Yeah, you say some interesting points. I mean, for anyone that's not watching, I'm over here like bawling.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Sometimes it's like so hard to tell your story because you end up almost comforting the other person because they respond the way that I'm responding, but I'm responding this way, not because I pity you, but because I feel it with you.
Yeah.
It's just that, lost mom understanding. Because you even said, like, you saw this woman that your aunt knew. She was amazing. She lost her husband. There is just such a different level of understanding when it's a mother saying goodbye to their child. Like, a mother's not meant to say goodbye to her child. It's honestly like losing. It's losing a part of you. And we love our husbands, we love our partners, but they're not a part of us. Your child is a part of you. And you do have gifts, and that you do have that level of understanding for lost parents that this wonderful woman, just no matter what she does, just would not be able to understand the same way that you do. And I just have so much admiration for you and what you've done and that drive. And also, again, seeing parts of me in you and being like, oh, just that level of understanding. So what did life kind of look like? I think a part of the thing too is like returning back to work and you returning back to this life.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that you are fundamentally a changed person. It really is a square peg and round hole, because you're like, I just don't fit here anymore because I'm just not the same person anymore. What did it look like finding this new version of you, this new career path? What was that like for you?
Oh gosh, it was difficult, to say the least, because everything I knew about myself, she didn't exist anymore. The things that I found joy in and purpose in before didn't exist now. And I went back to a job that before all of this I excelled in and I loved. And I went back and just everything felt so hollow. Everything felt so, and again, excuse my language, but I say this to my clients, I think loss makes everything else feel like it's surface level bullshit. Because it's like nothing else really matters, because you've seen the worst that life can throw at you. And you're like, I don't want surface level conversations and day-to-days anymore. I want to connect with people on a deep level and know that what I'm doing with my life has purpose. And I started to get, I wouldn't say really spiritual, but I've always been a very sciencey girl. Whereas now I was leaning into going to see spiritualist mediums, trying to find ways to connect with my babies, leaning into the unknown and hoping and praying that there was something there that we get to go to afterwards and we get to be with them and we get to connect with them again. Again, that's something that doing the work that I do has very much opened the door to that. But it was a process getting to this point, and getting to a point as well where I could sit in a room with somebody else and not absolutely break my heart at their story when I'm trying to help them. It takes a level of strength to be able to do that. And
Mhm.
I'm very glad that I've got to a point where I'm good at separating myself from others, but that doesn't mean that I don't connect, that I don't care, that I don't share my story too. It
Mhm.
just means that I'm able to put my own grief aside to be able to help others. But it's taken me a while to get to that point, and it's one thing that I'm always an open book, and I'll share that I really struggled with after I had Sonny. So just to share a little bit on that journey, we Lewis was ready to go and try again straight away, and I was like,
Mm.
initially I was like, I am not going down that road. I couldn't fathom the thought of having to go through that again. um and over time, I think most lost moms sit in the camp of either you want to try again straight away or you can't think of anything worse. It's either or.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was very much in the can't think of anything worse camp, but over time it's hard not to feel like there's a void that only a baby can fill.
Mhm.
And
Your arms just kind of yearn, ache, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And it's you so need something to pour your love into. I mean, we went and got a puppy because I was like, I need to put my love into something. And
Mhm.
bless him, he got me through some of the hardest times of my life. Um, but after it was just under a year, and I agreed to try again. I was feeling in a much better space. My practice was thriving. I felt like I'd found my purpose again. And I agreed to try again because it had taken us so long the first time. I was like, it's going to take ages this time again. I'm probably going to need
Mhm.
medication
I've got
again.
time. Yeah, like I've got time on my side. Yeah.
Exactly. And lo and behold, I fell pregnant in 2 months. And
Mm.
I found out I was pregnant with Sonny on my 29th birthday.
Mm.
And I recorded it when I took the test because I was like, I know I'm going to want to look back on this in the future. And my face is just such a picture. And I feel so sorry for that girl looking back at her now because I know everything is running through her head at one time.
Mhm.
And I was really lucky that we obviously went to a different hospital this time because there was no way I was going to go back there. Not just for the fact that it was traumatic going back there, but because of the negligence that we'd had as well. Um, and the hospital we went to, the consultant that I had is literally an angel that walks this earth. There's nobody else that would be better for the job that she does. Like when you picture a doctor and how you expect them to be compassionate and understanding and allow you to advocate for yourself, she is that person. She is
Mm.
phenomenal. And if I ever have any more babies, I would follow that woman to the ends of the earth to have my babies.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, she was amazing, but that doesn't mean that pregnancy after loss wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done. Um,
Mhm.
and I say that, and people always look at me weird when I say that because I'm like, well, surely grief is the hardest thing you've ever done. I'm like, but pregnancy after loss is learning to carry that grief and also waiting for the other shoe to drop for 9 months,
Mhm.
waiting for something to happen to your baby that you're carrying, and
Like living in flight or fight, really, right?
100%, and the
Yeah, like
entire nine
living in
months.
your trauma, like every
Yeah,
day. There's not a lot of people that would choose to do that. I always say,
no,
like, if your house burned down and you got burned, you'd probably have a huge fear of fire. You wouldn't be like you wouldn't be becoming a fireman and running into burning houses, right?
no.
It would be probably the last thing you want to do. But it's what, women have to be called to do if they are wanting to bring a baby into this world, right? It's really it's remarkable.
You hit the nail on the head. That's literally what any of my clients that are trying to conceive after loss or are pregnant after loss, I always say to them, it's the only form of PTSD that we expect, the patient to re-expose themselves to in hopes of a different outcome. Like
Mhm, and be okay,
yeah,
during it too, right? Be grateful, not even just be okay, but be grateful and live in a world that doesn't know how to support you or see you or hold it with you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mhm,
It's like I always say, it's like you wouldn't send a soldier with PTSD back into a war zone. But we
mm-mm,
expect moms to do that, and we expect them to do it with very little support and just to get on with it,
mhm,
because
mhm,
that's the way the world is. The world isn't wired for grief support and care, and
mhm,
the lack of bereavement and trauma-informed care is quite frightening.
mhm,
Um, but even with all the support that I have an amazing village at home, and I had a great medical team, and it got to the point where towards the end of my pregnancy, I was basically living in that hospital. I was
mhm,
going for CTGs and monitoring every couple of days because my
Mm-hmm.
anxiety could not let me go any more than a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And me being me, I was like, well, when he's here, that'll go away. Thinking everything will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was born, don't get me wrong, I had my dream birth, so I opted for a scheduled section. Just because I don't think my anxiety could have taken going through and waiting to go into labour.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need to know a day that he's gonna come, and this and the other.
So you could
Initially, I
just start
wanted,
like preparing, right? Like not
yeah,
just physically, but like mentally. Like, okay,
exactly,
there's an end date in sight.
exactly. And initially,
Yeah.
I wanted to have him naturally, and my consultant was like, I think with everything, you'd be better off having a section. So I was like, okay, cool. The day came round, and I remember being in the shower at 6 a.m. being like, holy shit, I might actually get to bring a baby home today. And the
Mm-hmm.
concept was so bizarre, and everything was ready for him, even though I hadn't allowed myself to get anything for him till I was past 30 weeks. I just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. The thought of like when we had the triplets, I had to take their stroller back. And the thought of having to do that again, I was like, that will break me. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we left everything to the last minute. And I remember going to the hospital that day, and my nerves have never been more shot.
Mm-hmm.
And a little head popped round the curtain, and it was my consultant, and she wasn't supposed to be there. And I was like, why are you here? She was like, I came in to do your section. So she came in on her day off to do my section for me because she knew how anxious I was. And again, that woman, I'll never be able to thank her enough. She held my hand through like the spinal block. She talked me through the entire thing. All of the team that were in the room were great. They were all informed on my history. They knew my kids' names. They followed my birth plan. They did everything I could ask them to do. But yeah, they were amazing. And he was born, and I heard him cry. And in that moment, I just felt like I'd let go of a breath that I'd been holding for 9 months because I was like, oh my God, he's here, he's alive. And I was just in awe of the fact that I was like, oh my God, I have a living child. And I'd never held a baby of my own that was full term before. I was only used to these teeny tiny preemies, and he felt so heavy. Um, and I remember they took us into the recovery room, and they were like, do you want to feed him? And I was like, yeah. And it was my first ever experience of actually having a baby latch. And oh God, I felt everything in that moment. Everything came full circle, and we were just so overjoyed, so griefy, so everything in between. But it was magical. And then we brought him home, and I was like, holy cow, we have to keep this little person alive, and I don't know how to do that. And that's when started a journey for me with postpartum anxiety and depression, which was one that I wasn't expecting. I knew was going to happen, but I didn't know to what extent.
Well, there's like this emphasis on, especially when you're pregnant after loss, is just like, I just need this baby to be alive. Like, I can't even think about postpartum because like, I don't even believe that I'm going to bring this baby home. It's like that level of protection, right?
Yeah.
And then
100%.
postpartum comes and you're like, whoa, I actually have to be a parent. Like,
yeah,
this is nuts. Like, I really, truly didn't believe it until this baby was in my arms. And that process in itself, postpartum in itself, is so hard. Being like stepping into this earth mom role, whether you've gone through loss or not, is so hard. But then you've gone through trauma and you've gone through loss. And really, pregnancy after loss in itself is a trauma, right? So now you have double, and now you're expected to be
just
a
get
mom.
on with it.
Yeah, be a mom. Yeah. What was that? Yeah,
Sorry.
what was that like for you? Like,
it was really, really tough. The first 6, I'll be honest, and I've said this to all of my clients, I can't remember a lot of the first 6 months of his life because I was so sick, and I didn't realize that I was sick because every ounce of energy I had was being thrown into making sure that he was okay. And I took him to the hospital, to A&E or the emergency room, more times than I can count because I was convinced that something was wrong. The The kid went to bed like Fort Knox. He had so many monitors on him. And I didn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping at all. To the point that about 6 weeks postpartum, we have wallpaper in our bedroom and it has birds on it. And I remember being awake at like 4 a.m. and he was sleeping on my chest and the birds on my wallpaper started to move. And I was like, this isn't normal. And I was really lucky that my parents were really hands-on, so I got to sleep in the day, but I didn't sleep at night for like 6 months. And if I did, I would lay down, I would leave my glasses on so that if I needed to check him, I could see him. And I didn't realize that all these things that I was doing, all these little pieces weren't normal. Until I spoke to other friends that had babies, and I was like, oh yeah, I do this, and they were like, okay. Are you okay? And I was like, I just thought this was normal. And they were like, no, that's not, the things that you're doing aren't normal. Like, are you enjoying your baby? And I was like, well, no, because I'm just trying to keep him alive. And they were like, okay, no, that's not normal. So
what did it feel like to hear that?
It was devastating because I think you build up so much of yourself just waiting for this baby to be here and thinking that when they're here, everything's going to be perfect and you're not going to be healed, but it's going to fix a part of you and you're going to go out and get to be a normal mom and a normal family. And that doesn't happen.
Just motherhood's going to be amazing and joyous and fun and like.
Yeah. And it's tough. Motherhood is tough anyway, but motherhood after loss is really tough. And I will always hold my hand up and say, yeah, I struggled. I struggled big time. I wasn't taking care of myself at all. And my breastfeeding journey was really hard. I had low supply from the get-go. And I want to say that it was probably because of all the stress I was putting on myself. And my supply dwindled and then dried up at 7 months. And I felt so guilty that I couldn't feed him because I had such a good supply with the triplets. Like I could have fed all of the NICU and still kept going. But with Sonny, I couldn't. And I felt really guilty for that. And that came with its own issues. And he had a dairy allergy too, so I had to cut out all dairy. And that was really scary figuring out what was going on with him there because he was so upset all of the time. And I was just like, I'm doing this wrong. Like, I'm obviously not seeing something. So yeah, it was a roller coaster. It was complicated. And I got to about, I want to say about between 4 and 6 months postpartum. And again, I had maternity leave, so I was taking the time off from work, and I knew that I had to go back to work, and I was like, I don't think that I'm in the right headspace to be helping people right now. So I went to one of my friends who is also a hypnotherapist, and he had just curated this method, and he was like, I think it's really something. And I was like, well, I love hypnotherapy anyway, so I'll be your guinea pig. But I told him, like, I wasn't leaving the house because I was so scared that Sonny was going to pick up something, he was going to get sick and he would die, that I didn't want, unless it was an appointment that I had to go to, I wouldn't leave the house with him. So I told him this, and he gave me a couple sessions, and he was like, right, I want you to go away and I want you to book like a play group or take him somewhere this week. And I was like, okay, thinking that it wouldn't happen. That week I booked 4 separate play groups and I took him to every single one. And I was actually okay with it. And it floored me, and I was like, okay, you need to show me how to do this to help other women. But then he set up a training school, and it was a great excuse really for me to take some time out of what I was doing to really get myself back to where I needed to be. So I took some time out and I went and helped him build out this training school, and in effect closed my practice for almost a year, just so I could really get myself back in the right headspace. And then when it felt right, I came back, and I'm so glad that I did that for myself, because it wouldn't have been fair to me, and it certainly wouldn't have been fair to the women that I was helping. And now I can honestly say that I am in probably the best mental headspace that I've been for years. But it's taken me a long time to get here. It took me a good 18 months postpartum with a living baby to actually start to feel like a human being again.
I think I'm so glad you say that, because I think a lot of women, there's that whole bounce back culture, and it's not just physical, but it's mental too. Like, you're going to find yourself, and postpartum is way longer than what we're led to believe. And sometimes it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And I can relate to so much what you're saying, because I don't think I felt like myself probably until kind of the same time too, like maybe even longer, like 20, 21 months postpartum. And I think it's important for women to hear that because, like, the struggle is real. Your struggle is real. And, like,
Yeah.
there's no quick fix. Like, it takes work and time and, um, it's hard, but you can get there. Yeah.
Like 100%. I think so much of women is you don't realize how much of yourself you have to give to your baby.
Mhm.
And then when
Mhm.
you're trying to give to your baby and give to your grief and your babies that aren't here too, there's nothing left for
Mhm.
you to fill your cup with. So
Mhm.
you feel lost for a long time and you just feel swallowed up into the
Mhm.
hole that is motherhood. And it takes a while for you to find the things that bring you joy again. Because again, you change when you have a living child. You evolve into a different person again. And it's
Mhm.
constantly finding this new version of you that takes time and it takes patience. And there's no
Mhm.
rule book for it. You just kind of have to
Mhm.
wing it and hope for the best.
And you add in, like, the lack of sleep and the hormones and your relationship changing with your partner. Like, these are
Absolutely.
huge monumental things on their own, but you group it all together and it's like, well, of course you're struggling. Like, right? When I think when you get to the other side, I'm putting it in quotations, and you look back, you're just like, whoa, I didn't realize like how deep I was actually
In
in
it.
that until you're
Yeah.
like, you get that perspective and you get that, like, the clouds parting kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. I think the last 4 years, I look back now and I'm like, I don't know how I got through big
Mhm.
chunks of the last 4 years.
Mhm.
And the woman that sits here now, it always makes me laugh when I say woman because I still think of myself like I'm just a teenage girl.
You're like,
Um,
"How do I have kids?" Like
I'm a 32-year teenager. How do I have kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the woman that sits here now compared to the woman that I was 4 years ago, vastly, vastly different people. And it's
Mm.
taken a hell of a lot of time, patience, and therapy to get where I am. Um,
Mhm.
and I wish somebody told me that early on in grief.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Mhm. What's your favorite thing about this woman, this version?
Oh, do you know, I used to be such a people pleaser. And I
Mhm.
think my favorite version about me now is I'm unapologetically me. I don't do things for other people
Mm.
anymore. I've learned that life is too short and
Mhm.
it's okay to put yourself first sometimes.
Mhm.
And I think doing that makes me a better mother, a better partner, a better daughter, a better friend. Um, so yeah, and resilience as well. I think it takes a lot of resilience to get here. And I know I said to you before we started this, that point of my story always gets me. I will never not cry when I tell that part of my story. Um,
Mhm.
but it's part of my story. And like I said earlier, it's all of my children and what I've been through is just woven into the tapestry, the very fabric of the person that I am. And I wouldn't change that. Of course, I'd love to have my children here, but I can't do that. And I wouldn't change what I've been through and the person that I am now. I'm very proud of the person that I am now. So
Mm.
yeah. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
No, I love that answer. It's so honest, and I'm so proud of the person you are too. Because
Thank you. I'm proud
I
of
think,
you.
like, I always like to add, like, or ask, like, how do your babies show up in your life? And really, you've kind of answered it. They show up
Yeah,
because they're interwoven in. They show up in, like, literally everything you do and the woman that you are. And, like, even just this unlearning and relearning and stepping into this new role, that's
yeah,
them, right? That is
100%.
their story. That's them showing up in your life by making you who you are today. And
100%. I mean,
it's so
don't get me wrong.
beautiful.
I still get signs from them, like
Of course. Yeah.
the
Tell me
season of their
about that.
birth.
I want to hear how
That's
they,
okay.
like, figurative, like, really show up
So
in your
the
life.
the season of when they were born, we have in the UK we have an explosion of cabbage butterflies. So that's always kind of been a
Mm.
big thing for me. We have a rose bush for them, but my favourite is my office where I am now is in my garden in my backyard. And opposite is a big tree, and in that tree lives two squirrels and a little robin. Um, and they are there all the time. So that's kind of
Mm.
my way of seeing. I see Eden as the robin and the two little squirrels as my two little boys, and it's
Mm.
a pleasure to watch them. But you're absolutely right. I think even the spiritual side of me, like if I'm not sure what direction my life is going in, if I'm making the right decision with things or whatever, I will ask my kids, like, can you let me know if I'm doing the right thing or
Yeah,
show
like
me
guide
something?
me.
And
Mm-hmm.
they will. Like, even the last few weeks, like there's been, like I said to my mum, I was eating dinner the other day and something touched the back of my arm, and I know it's my kids. And my dad said something to me that he felt something touch him the other day, and he's like, "Oh, I know that it's just them messing with me," little
Aw,
things like that. And
that's so sweet.
they thoroughly do. They show up, and they are the reason that I am here, and everything that I do is for them and for their legacy and to keep their names and their spirits alive. And I get to talk about them every day. So selfishly, what better career could I have than a space where I get to share them and tell
Mm-hmm.
people about them and enjoy them every single day?
Well, and
Um,
people, just in the way that they're interwoven in you, people get to experience them through you, right?
yeah,
Not just
yeah,
hearing their names, but like getting to be blessed by what they've changed in you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. I love that
Thank you.
so much.
Me
What
too.
does like life kind of, obviously right now you're working this new practice, but what
Hmm.
does life kind of look like for you right now? You have a 2-year-old.
Yeah, he's oh,
Obviously, like, does he know about his siblings? How does that kind of show up? How do your kids show up with you and your husband? Those kind of things.
yeah. I mean, he's going to be 2.5 next month. And I look back at that
Mm.
part of parenting. You blink and you're like, where the hell did my baby go? It's a full blown
Hmm.
little
It's like
person now.
the slowest, but the quickest 2 years ever, I find.
100%.
Hmm.
Somebody said to me at the start, the nights are long, but the years are short, and it's very, very true.
Mm. Hmm.
But yeah, he's such a character, and I see all three of them in him.
Mm.
But the reason that we decided to name him Sonny is because when he was born, he was the double of Hudson.
Mm.
And Sonny would have been Hudson's nickname.
Mm.
And his middle name is Brian, and there's a double meaning to that because both Lewis and I's grandfather's names is Brian, and
Mm.
Noah's middle name was Brian, so he has both of his brothers' names. Um, so we're hoping at some point, if we're ever lucky to have a little girl, obviously we could put Eden in there somewhere. Um, but yeah, he is such a character, and I see so much of them in him, and I see reflections of how they would have grown in him too. And he's fully aware of them. So we have them. We didn't have like a plot for them. We had their ashes at home. So we have a shelf in our dining room because our dining room is the central hub of our home. We eat every meal there. Everybody's constantly, it's the highest traffic area in our home. So it's the space for me that made me feel like they were the most involved. So we have like their little shelf with all their little trinkets on. He knows where they are. He will run into the room and he will talk to them. He will
Mm.
take them books. He will show them things. He obviously has a limiting understanding. He's 2, but he understands the concept of who they are. And if somebody says to him, "Where's Noah, Eden, and Hudson?" he'll take them to where they are. Um,
Aw.
so he knows, and sometimes he'll surprise me, and we'll be settling down for bed, and he'll mention their names, or he'll talk about them, or yes, he mentions Noah more than anybody, and he'll be like, "Noah, play," or and I'm like, "Well, I'm
Aw.
hoping they can engage with you in ways that I can't see."
Yeah.
But he's aware of them, and for me and Lewis, we talk about them every day. We share little snippets of sometimes there's things that memories that one of us will have that the other doesn't have, or moments that we didn't share together that we'll randomly remember and bring up, and it's so nice to
Hmm.
have that. Um, when we go pumpkin picking for Halloween, we get little white pumpkins for them, and all just
Mm.
little things that incorporate them into our everyday lives because
Mhm.
that's never gonna not be there. They're our children, and we still want to celebrate them and enjoy them just as much as we enjoy Sonny. And he will
Mhm.
never not know about them. He will never grow up thinking that he was an only child. He knows that he has, 2 brothers and a sister. He
Mhm.
knows that they live in the sky, that they're not here. It's just parenting in different ways and incorporating them in different ways it's hard, but I think you find ways to do it that work for you over time.
Mhm. And everyone kind of finds their own way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I've really not enjoyed our conversation, but I'm just so grateful for it. Um, my heart is just like bursting for you. And I'm so sad that you're all the way in the UK because it'd be just so
I
nice to
know.
be friends. I'm like, oh, I need to be friends with this person. And
We
I'm sure
will
there's
be.
so many, I know there's so many women listening to this that are feeling the same way and are like, I love just everything that you've shared. And I know there's going to be requests of people that want to get connected with you. So like, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, everything I do goes through Instagram, so you can find me
Okay.
at elle.hypnotherapy. And yeah, if you want to reach out, the program that I run to help lost moms is called the Lost Mama Method.
Okay.
It's a 6-week all-inclusive program that has lots of, obviously, therapy, but there's lots of other pieces there too. I created it, like I said at the start, because I knew there was a missing piece of something that I wish I'd have had this at the start. It's very
Mm-hmm.
much being like wrapped in a big hug and having every kind of support that you could possibly need from somebody that gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everything I do is through Instagram. So, like I said, my page is l.hypnotherapy. And if you are interested, or even if you just want to talk to me, I'm always happy to connect to people. Just drop me a DM. And yeah, we can go from there. But yeah,
I love
I
that. We'll
appreciate it.
definitely share your contact and more
Thank
about
you.
your program in the show notes for anyone that's interested, because I'm sure there will be, because
Thank you.
we all know that the support is so needed. And
Yeah,
it's very different when it comes from a fellow lost mom who has that
100%.
extra level of understanding.
100%. I'm sure you get that too. I know you do with your line of work too. And it's,
Mm.
yeah, I'm grateful that people like you exist. I know I said earlier, I hate that we have to, but I'm glad that we are here and able to hold space for others that need it.
Totally. Well, thank you so much, Elle, for sharing your beautiful babies with us and your
Thank you.
story and your heart. It's truly been such a pleasure to hear about your babies and to hear about your experience. And I know that there's going to be someone listening to this that feels a little bit more seen in their experience and validated in how they're feeling. And thank you for being, a huge part of that collective
Thank you.
healing for all of us.
No, thank you for giving me the space to share them. I appreciate it. And if it helps one person feel less alone, then it's worth it.
Totally. If this episode resonated with you, would you mind sharing it with another mother who might need to hear it? Sometimes the smallest act, like sending an episode to a friend or sharing it in your stories, can remind someone they're not alone in their grief or their hope. If you do share, please tag at the Rainbow Connection podcast so we can continue to spread these stories together. Thank you again for tuning in today. And remember, you are never alone. I'll see you in the next episode.